This graveyard is the oldest graveyard in Boston. It's King's Chapel burial ground. John Winthrop's in here. He landed here in Boston in 1630. You also have Mary Chilton from the Mayflower Vessel in here, and the inventor of the crossword puzzles in here, Frederick Kipler. He's 6 down and 4 across somewhere on the left. King's Chapel Church. This site dates back to 1686. This is the first Anglican and granite church in Boston. I mean, it's not what they had in 1686. It was a wooden church, but that's what the site dates to. They built this one right around the old church while it was still in use. Then they busted it up, passed it out through the windows and openings, and sent it up to Nova Scotia to be recycled into other buildings. Any Canadians on board? Just checking. Omni Parker House Hotel was our very first Boston Creek Live, famous for Parker House rolls. Ulysses S. Grant Station. On your right, though, you'll see a stone with a plaque on it. This is Sam Adams right there. In the center is the Franklin Monument. Benjamin Franklin's family's in here. And the next stone with a plaque on it, James Otis, famous for the phrase, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." And Paul Revere's in there. He had 8 children. Then his wife passed away. And he remarried within about a month and actually had 8 more children with the second wife. I have jokes, but this is a family tour here today.
Aww, dang it.
Though some historians regard him as the original Minuteman here in Massachusetts. Let 'em hear you, disco duck! Oh yeah. Boston Common on your right. This is America's very first public park, 1634. It's like the heart of the city here, Boston Common. Speaking of Canadians, there's our Canadian driver right behind us, Mr. Tim Burr, wearing his finest plaid today. Every duck driver here has a different story. 27 vehicles, 53 drivers, all of us have some sort of issue. I'm just here to bring disco with me. It's too bad he doesn't want to pull up next to us. We get a little racing done today. It's not often that happens. But now we're going to head into the theater district where producers love to put on shows in the 1940s. The idea was if you could put on a show in Boston and be successful, you could go anywhere across the country and do well. You can see a Blue Man Group at the Charles Playhouse. You see a comedy show at the Comedy Store. It's now home to Emerson College down here. Emerson College moved down here. Jay Leno and Henry Winkler went to Emerson. Back before Fonzarelli was jumping tanks and hanging out with Tamiki Tuscanero. He was living and going to school down here at Emerson College. One block to our left is where the Sons of Liberty used to be. The Sons of Liberty would meet under a large elm tree in a grove of others. The largest elm tree was the Liberty Tree. They talk about things like the Stamp Tax Act implemented by the British, have a few pints. When the city is occupied by the British in 1775, they chop the tree down for firewood. The next year, the Sons of Liberty are back. They put up a pole and a pub, and today there's a plaque on the side of a Dunkin' Donuts commemorating the Liberty Tree. You'll see it down here as we turn the corner. Disco Dog! Yeah.
I'll say it. Where?
To your right, you'll find some of the British soldiers buried right here. The ones that fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill are buried here in the central burial ground on our right. You also have Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston. On our left, on the edge of the alleyway, you'll see a plaque here in memory of Edgar Allan Poe. He wasn't actually born in that alley. If he was, that would explain a few things, right? Look at that Dorchester Donnie. Can't miss that one. So we have 1634 on your right in an elevation, because that's the original landmass known as the Shawmut Peninsula. And then here on our left, it goes to 1837, America's first oldest public botanical gardens. Because it's all landfill from here, Charles Street, all the way to Fenway Park, home to the best baseball team in the known universe, the Boston Red Sox! Woo! All right. So this is where you see a lot of wedding parties taking their pictures throughout the day. Today I wouldn't be surprised if there were about 20 wedding parties taking pictures here. 1837. They have 15,000 tulips that bloom here every single spring. 15,000. And they had the very first large public display of tulips in the United States here. It's kind of a tradition they've carried on here over the years. 50 different types of trees. They even filmed some of the movie Ted over here, where the father and the son wanted to buy Ted. It was filmed right here in the public garden. We're going to go down here and see Cheers Bar, made famous on television. 275 episodes. Think back to the people who got their start on that show, like Woody Harrelson. Cheers Bar will be on your right. Great food, great service, but I guarantee if you go inside, no one will know your name. Cheers Bar.
What?
The real name of the business has always been the Bull and Finch Pub, one of Boston's early singles bars.
Where's Cheers?
Next door, the Greek Consulate with the white and blue flag. If you go into the Greek Consulate on a Wednesday afternoon, they give away free samples of Windex. It cures everything, I'm told. Opa! So we'll roll onto the first of many streets in the Back Bay here, and if you get lost in the Back Bay, don't worry, they're alphabetical here. We're turning onto the first one, Arlington. Then there's Berkeley, Clarendon, Dartmouth, Exeter, and so on. Fisher College on your right. We have another duck in front of us here. Here's Molly Molasses. Don't let the name fool you. This is a pretty fast duck here. Look down any of these streets or alleyways on your right, they look like they go on forever. You're looking at 40 years of landfill out here, and one of my favorites to point out is alleyway 422 on our right. Great camera shot of what 40 years of landfill in the 1800s looks like. This goes all the way to Berkeley College of Music, down towards Mass Ave, almost to Fenway Park down there. On your left, you see President George Washington, leader of the Continental Army. Most photographed view in the city on your left. The Rodeo Drive of Boston is often considered Newbury Street on our right here. Home to Burberry, Chanel, Ralph Lauren, Giorgio Armani. You get down towards Mass Ave, it's Radio Shack, Salvation Army, and Best Buy. They got a little bit of everything down here for you guys. I think let's live on the edge and go down Newbury Street today. Do a little window shopping, right ladies? There you go. If you want to burn some cash or melt some plastic, this is the place to do it. Woo, tight through here. It's like Bob Ross driving and airing some air between us and the vehicles here. Church on our right. The last set of doors here is the Leslie Lindsay Memorial Chapel. Leslie Lindsay went down on the Lusitania in 1915, and her parents built this chapel in her memory. Let's say you want to cruise around Boston in some disco clothes. One of the primo spots to go is Newbury Street, and you have Brooks Brothers on our left here. That's the oldest clothing store in the United States right there, from the early 1800s. They've been around so long that when President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, he was wearing a Brooks Brothers suit and overcoat that day. Look where the Museum of Science started out in the 1800s. This building right here, when they were called the Museum of Natural History. Now, it's 3 floors of restoration hardware. Times are changing. You might have heard that Boston's called Beantown. In the 16 and 1700s, the Puritans are running the show. You better show up for church on Sunday. If you don't, they throw you in jail. Then who knows what's going to happen to you. Well, if you're in church all day long, you need a food that's going to cook itself, and people start putting big pots of beans on the fire. Thousands of homes all cooking beans at the same time, and all the sailors could smell miles offshore were beans on the wind. The sailors are the ones who travel the globe and spread the nickname Beantown. Too bad we weren't cooking cheesecake. We could have been Cheesecake Town. We're not supposed to quack on Newbury Street. Apparently quacking interrupts a fine shopping experience here. Whatever, do what you want, it's your tour. We're going to turn the corner, and we're going that's the spirit, thank you. There you go, that's the New England way, across the grain. We're going to turn the corner, we'll get into Copley Square, and you'll get some really great camera shots of architecture. It's very diverse, but there's nothing here in the back bay from before the 1800s, because everything is landfill. But look around here at the corner of Clarendon here. That was somebody's house originally. They could not fill in the land here quick enough and put homes on top of it. You had a mass exodus from Ireland going on. Everybody's trying to crowd onto Beacon Hill. So as soon as they filled in some land, up the homes would go out here. What they did to support the foundations of these homes was drive pieces of piling into the ground, pieces of spruce tree, 10 to 12 inches in diameter, and then stack the field stone on top of that. We have a couple new things in the city thanks to Mayor Menino before he leaves office after being the longest running mayor in Boston. We want to see rent-a-bikes, which we have, and food trucks. So this is kind of a new thing here in the city of Boston. We're rolling into Copley Square. Here's the Trinity Church. It is listed as one of the top 10 pieces of architecture in the United States. 1872 they started building this, and it had taken 5 years to construct. The man who designed it was Henry Hobson Richardson. He had the first recognized style of architecture in the country called Richardsonian Romanesque. Let 'em hear you, disco duck! Shot together, we're going to see ourselves riding in a duck reflected in the windows of the John Hancock Tower here. It'll be like our little group photo together. We'll never forget each other. Shazam, we're looking good. Woo!
No, we're not.
We're a handsome looking group, if I say so myself.
Only half. Yeah, only half of us.
Well, we're just waiting for this guy to move on. This is that giant green glass building you can see from most of Boston. It's called the John Hancock Tower, 63 stories tall, 10,344 reflective panes glass. Maybe you wonder where the hotel was. Every U.S. president since 1912 has stayed here. Even Hillary thinks Bill stayed here one night. The Fairmont Opry Plaza Hotel on your left. Before 1912, this was a museum of fine arts here in the city of Boston.
Wow, I actually see who's
A very important first for America, right here. Boston Public Library had the first lending library system open to the public free of charge.
I don't think it's
10 million books in here, 65 miles of bookshelves. Letters from Christopher Columbus to the King and Queen of Spain. But as I turn the corner here, you get a great camera shot of the Trinity Church from the front. There's even a boat underneath this church. The water table is extremely high out here, and that works to the advantage of the foundations and keeping all the pilings wet out here. While they're putting the pilings in underneath this church, they use the boat to kind of help place them, and they left the boat underneath. It's still here today. And if you take the tour here, which I really do recommend going inside, they'll tell you more about all this and how it's all constructed. The stained glass windows up on the second floor are 7 layers of the same artwork, 7 layers deep, to give you the richness of color and handle the winters they were having here in New England. Up ahead, you got that church with the copper up on top, very ornate. That's the new Old South Meeting House. That's the oldest church congregation in the city of Boston. William Dawes was a member. Benjamin Franklin's family went here. Light them up, guys. Disco duck.
quack, quack.
here with his hand up. There he is. The statue is almost life size of this guy. He was 6'3", 300 pounds in the 1800s. Phillips Brooks. You see a guy with a hood on? We film a lot of movies and television shows around here now. Some years ago, the state legislature started offering 25% off the payroll tax. And it's really working. We've had Adam Sandler come back here, a Massachusetts native, filming all kinds of movies. Last summer, Grown Ups 2, the sequel.
Yes.
Then we have it. Building on our right, though, where Talbot sits, that's 500 Boylston Street, Houston, Boston Legal Television Show. You'll recognize a plaza here from the television show. MIT started out on our left in the 1800s when their tuition was only $100 a year. So here's the rent-a-bikes I was talking about, a great way to have fun in the city, cruising around with the rest of us here. Living on the edge though, be careful. You go online and you rent these bikes and then you can cruise around the city with the rest of us. Well, this whole city, Boston, started out pretty much as the Shawmut Peninsula. It was 1.5 square miles. That's all there was. At high tide, it really looked like an island. It was Boston Common, Faneuil Hall, the North End, and Beacon Hill. That was it. And over the years, we've just kind of gone around all of this and filled in 4,400 acres of landfill. East Boston, South Boston, the airport, islands on the harbor, and this entire back waiting area. People have asked, how can you put the two tallest buildings on landfill out here? The landfill doesn't really matter. It's the granite down below. 200 feet down with some of the best solid bedrock to begin with. Amelia Earhart worked here in the city of Boston for a while. In the Women's Educational and Industrial Union. And then she'd go down to Braintree, not far from here, and pick up a full time. Here's where she worked on our right, now known as I-Party. I bet Amelia was a party I won't have no event. Arlington Street Church on your left, 16 stained glass windows, all designed and manufactured by Lewis Comfort Tiffany, and that's why you can't see them, because they're heavily protected. They had a lot of protests here on the steps over the years. They were burning draft cards on the front steps during the Vietnam War. As we roll up here, you'll see the swan boats on the public garden here. These swan boats have been in operation since the mid-1800s, owned and operated by the same family all these years, the Paget family of Boston. Just another reason for wedding parties to take their pictures here. Boston Common has seen a lot over the years here. Pope John Paul II held Mass here. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke here in 1965. Martin Luther King Jr. was hanging out here in the South End, right behind us here in the back bay. Met his wife up here in Boston while going to Boston University. But when you're out here in the summer on Boston Common, it sometimes looks like the Irish Riviera, nothing but a sea of sunburns here on Boston Common. We're going to go up over Beacon Hill ahead of us, which has been home to Boston's wealthy and elite since right around 1820. They call themselves Brahmins up here, Boston Brahmins. Secretary of State John Kerry has a home up here. I see him all the time. I'm like, hey John, he's like, what's up, just this wall of sticks and branches on your right.
Oh.
That's called a fish weir. That's what you find if you dig down in the ground around here. They've been dated to about 5,000 years old. Native Americans were living here that far back. Tides go out, the fish are trapped behind. Beacon Hill on our right, they leave the gas lamps on 24/7. They found out it's cheaper to leave the lamps on here than it is to pay someone to come out and turn them off and on twice a day. Some of the homes even have original glass up here. The 64 Beacon, second building in, has lavender or purple panes of glass. Those were made in Germany in the early 1800s. In certain batches, they put too much manganese oxide in the mixture. And when exposed to sunlight over the course of about 100 years, you get that purple color. Six homes on Beacon Hill have that original glass. Alright, let's cruise up to the top of Beacon Hill. One of the first people to live up here in the 1700s was John Hancock, right up the top. The oldest men's dining club of Boston is the Somerset Club on our left here. On a Friday night, 1945, 31 gentlemen were seated here having dinner. A fire breaks out in the kitchen. The fire department showed up at the front door where they're greeted by the leader, he who says, "Sorry, gentlemen, unless you're members of the club, you'll have to go out to the rear to fight the fire." They go around back and they put that fire out. No one was injured though, thank goodness. But the next day all the papers in Boston read, "Tragedy at the Somerset Club, no dessert served last evening." A horribly true story here on Beacon Hill. But today the top of Beacon Hill is home to the new State House up here. The two men who placed a cornerstone for this building were Sam Adams and Paul Revere. And that's real gold on top, 13 pounds of 23 karat gold leaf up there. I'm surprised it's still there in this economy. If you ever read about a guy in a disco suit, a hot air balloon, and a blowtorch, you know what's going down here on Beacon Hill. Mary Dyer's on your left, sitting down looking very sad. She was hanged on Boston Common for one supposed crime, being a Quaker, protesting the hangings of male Quakers here in the city of Boston. And they warned Mary 3 times to stop coming up here. Once people saw Mary on the Common, they didn't like this practice anymore. It's a real turning point. President Kennedy's legal address on your right, 122 Bowden Street, the screen door with the lanterns. His apartment was on the 3rd floor. He picked up an apartment here after being elected to Congress in 1946. I bet Marilyn Monroe was up there a few times. The north slope of Beacon Hill in front of us here. This neighborhood on your left was a huge stop in the Underground Railroad. People hit the cellars, attics, and crawl spaces here. The church on your left is St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church. The first minister here was Lyman Beecher. His daughter was Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, a book about abolishing slavery. I'll tell you though, if you're going to visit any of our 86 Dunkin' Donuts